Happy summer, everybody. Temperatures are starting to rise out there. Humidity levels are up and people are coming to the beach. Today we have a nice agenda. First, I want to remind everybody about our filming process. We are filming and recording. When we get to the Q&A session, if you would, let us know your name and address would be very helpful. We'll do any follow-ups that we need based off of that. And for the people that are watching this as we've recorded it on the website, we'd like them to hear your questions. So if you would wait for Amanda or David to bring a microphone to you to ask your questions or make your comments, and we'll do the best we can to answer those at that time. Okay, upcoming events. We have several upcoming events. I'll be talking about those, quite a list actually, as one of our bigger lists that I've seen for our community coffees. Then I'll give everybody an update on the Resort Beach food and beverage service. So I'm sure we all have questions, or several questions are out there. And then also about Tower Beach access. Then Bo will talk a little bit about our maintenance projects that are ongoing this summer, some that have been completed, give you some updates on that. David Henderson will start to talk about the Shell Ring project, more information on that as it quickly approaches. And then David will also talk about some of our gate issues, both Greenwood and the Beach Gate, and start to verify the specifics of what people have said to us is their number one priority for CSA to be working on based on our survey comments. So we want to take a little deeper dive into that information and start to validate what we think the issues are with the community. So we'll be doing a variety of things, including getting your feedback today, as well as doing a survey in the future of property owners to make sure we're gathering that information and trying to assess what the issues really are there. Okay, and then we have Dave Borghese. We'll talk about the public art information and the initiative that Dave has been taking in conjunction with the CSA and ASPO boards to get some information back from you. I believe a straw poll will be there, and then we'll go quickly to questions and comments from the audience. So looking forward to that. And with that, we'll talk a little bit about upcoming events. Circle to Circle Committee, Sea Pines Community meeting will be here tomorrow at 3 to 3:30, and then 3:30 p.m. will be an official meeting start time. We'll have a viewing of exhibits. The Circle to Circle Committee will be presenting some exhibits that they've been working on. We encourage everybody to attend. I think you'll see a lot of ideas that they have at that time, and you'll have an opportunity to give your feedback to those ideas, and they'll be collecting that information from you as well. Hargray Fiber Optic Project Open Communications Forum on Friday, 2 o'clock. We've been having these every other week. Hargray continues to move on their projects throughout the community. We continue to have some issues out there, although I think they're responding better, and they seem to be calming down a little bit as more and more people get information on this. But we want to continue these public forums for people to come in and meet the guys at Hargray and talk to them about any issues you might have, as well as any questions you might have. Save Our Sea Turtles meeting will be held Wednesday, June 8th from 7 p.m. to 8:30 p.m. That is at the Beach Club at the Atlantic Room. So those interested in the SOS party and the Sea Turtles initiatives, please make a note of that. And if you'd like to attend, obviously June 8th is the date. Shell Ring Research Project, we'll get more information about that later from David, but basically Monday, June 13th from 3:30 to 4:30. We have a couple of other notifications in here as well about additional project meetings. Public Art Initiative Community Meeting will be held Wednesday, June 15th at 9:30 a.m. Dave will be speaking more about that as well. Again, another Shell Ring Public Day number 1, Thursday, June 16th from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. At the Shell Ring. ASPO board meeting will be Tuesday, June 21st at 1:30. CSA board meeting Tuesday, June 21st at 3. So we'll try to get those together so those of you who are interested in attending both can be right there. Were you trying to highlight something? What was it? Oh, it is a date and time change, just so those of you who are not familiar with that. Town hall meeting with Tom Lennox. I saw Tom here somewhere. There's Tom. Will be Thursday, June 23rd at 4 p.m. Just an update, right, Tom? CSA inaugural 4th of July celebration, really a cookout. We're going to have a cookout at Tower Beach for owners and their guests, and that'll be consisting of, I guess, sliders, hot dogs, and burgers that will be prepared for folks who want to attend that. Shell Ring Public Day number 2, again, Friday, July 1st from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m., again, at the Shell Ring itself. Okay. Okay, a couple quick things on the resort beach food and beverage service. Those of you who don't know, the resort is offering services on the beach now. They have a quartered off area. They've acquired the property that is extending beyond the dunes line slightly so that they can provide these services. They have applied with the town. They have been granted a liquor license. We are continuing to review this. We've been in discussions with the town. Actually, week before last, we met with town officials and started to talk about what all the implications of this might be. And we're continuing to look at all of those, and I've had discussions and are looking at a variety of impacts that this may have on CSA, on the beach trust itself, as well as what our obligations and or rights might be related to that. So we're continuing that. I wish I had more information for you, but it's going to be a pretty deep dive, as we've found, to go back into the records and find out what the obligations and rights of use are related to this property, because it's certainly a concern. We'll have more for everybody related to that as it goes forward. Right now, suffice it to say that we're working on it and we're diving deeper into it for you. Tower Beach Access, got a lot of emails. We're in summer, and just to let people know, we have not changed any policies. We have changed a couple of procedures that are going on down at Tower Beach, and it's related to your ID cards. ID cards get you into Tower Beach. They move the gate and allow the gate access there. ID cards are out there for all residential property owners. Residential property owners include timeshare owners. So timeshare operators get that as well, and they get those cards to be able to have their owners get access to Tower Beach. In conjunction with that, any owner can have access there, and they can bring guests with them. So they get to have the opportunity, when they're accompanied, to have guests at Tower Beach. That card activates that gate. They may bring additional people in. The good thing about the cards is we can monitor the activity that's going on down there. So as we go forward, we'll see who's using the gate, how many times they're using the gate, that kind of information. You may see, when you go down to the parking lots, a variety of different passes in windows. Owners use a variety of different passes. We issue different passes to timeshare folks than we issue to other property owners, real property owners who have stickers on their car. So you'll see all kinds of weekly passes that go in down there. They may have guests that go in there. Property owners also call in their own passes for rental cars. We have somewhere in the neighborhood of 2,400 non-resident owners and another 1,600 rental owners who don't necessarily live here but visit here often, and many times they just call in a pass. They don't have their car, they may use a rental car, or if someone buys a new car. So you will see on occasion a variety of different passes in the windows of vehicles at Tower Beach, but everybody has a card, and that's our really our control factor is that ID card. So that, I know we'll probably have more questions on that, but that's a quick summary on it, and we'll go into more details on that later if you do have questions. Okay, with that, I'd like to turn it over to Bo, and Bo will give you an update on our projects. Bo?
Thanks, Brett. Good morning, everybody. As many of you know, we always have a lot of projects going on in Maintenance Enhancement Major Project Committee and with our maintenance department. This project that I have some slides on today is referencing Gull Point. I don't know if I have any property owners from Gull Point. If I do, I just want to thank you for the last 3 weeks and the inconvenience that we caused getting the road repaired. It was rather unexpected, and we have some pictures to represent that. And if we could go to those slides, please. So on 5/7 of May, we had a corrugated metal pipe that there's two 48-inch corrugated metal pipes that run underneath the Gull Point land bridge. One of those pipes collapsed, and we had a 9-foot 2-inch tide, and it eroded, as you can see, part of our roadway. And this is something that we'd been looking at with engineers to safety and at the maintenance committee for the last few months, and we've been keeping an eye on it. I will say that we had this scheduled to be repaired on 5/9. So this couldn't have happened I'd say any better or any worse of a time, but fortunately, we were slated to start work the following Monday. If we could go to the next slide, please. So the road was damaged on 5/7. Our staff came in and made emergency repairs the day and morning of 5/8. And again, we had another 9-foot plus tide that night, and it washed away what we had repaired internally with our maintenance department. Fortunately for us, we had this work scheduled and these pipes scheduled to be replaced on Monday 5/9. So the timing worked out fairly well. I will say the project was a lot more complicated than we anticipated. When those metal corrugated pipes were installed in 1970, there was force main sewer, there was electrical, there was a lot of things that were ran on top of those pipes. So, for us to get new reinforced concrete pipe installed, it was a challenge to say the least for our contractor. Next slide, please. So this just shows, the new reinforced concrete piping that we had installed, or 248-inch concrete pipes that run underneath Galt Point Road. These are these aren't the luxurious aesthetical improvements that we make that everybody gets to see all the time, but obviously very, very necessary for us to protect all our property owners' assets. Next slide. So this is the completed project for the most part without the road paving. Riprap it was about 50 feet, actually 100 feet total of 48-inch reinforced concrete pipe that was installed underneath Galt Point, weaving them through force main and through electrical. It was very challenging. We had some really skilled equipment operators. Thank the good Lord that they were able to do that without creating any problems. This is just more slides that show the progress of that project, which, I believe was through 5/9 was the start and 5/23 was the completion date. And the last slide, please, just shows everything completed. It's been hydro-seeded, it's been seeded, so, and hopefully by the end of the summer, you won't even be able to tell that work happened, except for the fact that there's a new patch of asphalt in the road. But for any of you that live on Galt Point know what kind of challenges that presented for our contractor and for us and for all of our property owners that live back there. So if I just wanted to thank you for your patience and allowing us to get this done for the community. It was something that needed to happen, and we pulled it off successfully. Also, we're also working on a project on Canvasback. This is a picture of the old fencing, and I've brought up some of these project updates before, but I really wanted to have some representative photos that show the condition of what the fence looked like prior to us doing any work, and then also what it looks like now. And if you go to the next slide, please. This is the conceptual below that at the end product will look like. It's a louver style fence with the old Carolina brick. It's the tumbled kind of more historic looking brick, and those are completed capstones. And last community coffee I talked about us putting up screenings to partition off our work area, and that's two reasons really, safety and security to keep people out, but then also we don't want to open up sight lines into our property owners that live behind the Canvasback fence. But it really should be pretty magnificent looking fence when we get it done. I was happy that the committee and the board approved the spend on this, because as you can see, if you just go back to the other photo, please, it was it doesn't scream sea pines, and it desperately needed some repair, and we're repairing it, but we're also improving the quality of the fence as well. Some other updates that I have. that I don't have slides for. They're just quick updates. The trolley lots 1 and 2, if you've noticed that we're putting some mulch down, especially right now in trolley lot 2, that is to cover up the glaring white rock, but then also we're going to be hydroseeding all of that area and efforts to get some grass to grow back on those lots. So it'll be more park-like setting for our property owners to walk their dog and utilize that space more user-friendly, I guess. We're in the process of doing that, and hopefully after the 4th of July, when we have our big push for traffic and parking, we can finish that project in lots 1 and 2 and grow that in for the rest of the summer. The road paving, Wisteria is going to be paved this week. All the route repairs and shoulder work have been completed. So Wisteria will be paved by the end of this week, and Planters Wood and Planters Wood Court will be planted by the 24th of this month in June. Also, we have Pine Island Club patching that is happening and starting on June 6th, and Amanda has put out notifications and emails to all of our property owners on these projects. And that's all I have. If there's any questions, obviously after the meeting, I'll be happy to answer any questions anybody may have, and thank you for your time.
Yeah. All right. Thank you, Bo. David, talking about the Shell Ring project. Uh-oh.
Thank you, Brett, and good morning. At April's community coffee, I discussed the upcoming Shell Ring research project, and for the benefit of those that were not here in April, I wanted to quickly rehash some of that information and then provide a status update as to where the current project is, which is underway. For those of you that may not know, shell rings occur primarily along the southeast and Gulf Coast, although most of them are located along the coast of Georgia and South Carolina. And there are only about 50 of these structures that are known to exist in the world, all located in this area. They are all dated between 3,000 and 5,000 years ago. Archaeologists are unsure why they were built. Were they cultural? Were they village? Were they a place of trade? Were they a combination thereof? They don't know. We don't know. Only 6 have been investigated in detail, and now there will be 7 with the work that's going on at our shell ring that's located in the Forest Preserve. And they're interested in shell rings because they do occupy a pivotal place in time, in that the geological periods that were progressing, and when these shell rings were built, referred to as the late Archaic period. During that time, the sea levels had stabilized to about where they are today. But in previous periods, the sea levels were down considerably more, upwards of 100 feet in the previous geological periods. And so all the human inhabitant signs that were there during those previous periods, of course, are no longer there because they're underwater now. And so that is why the shell ring at 3,000 to 5,000 years old during that period is the first sign of human inhabitants on Hilton Head Island. Our shell ring specifically is somewhat unique in that it is in near pristine condition, one of the best of all the 50 that are known to exist. It is easy accessible. It is a very short walk from Fish Island in the Forest Preserve, and if you're not familiar with the Forest Preserve or Fish Island or the shell ring, I did bring copies of the Forest Preserve map. Please help yourself on the way out. Last time any research was done on our shell ring was in the 1950s and 1960s, and so they were dated techniques and dated methods. The work was not documented very well, and so even though some work had been done, it was poorly documented. It is one of the smallest shell rings and one of the lowest, and you can see over on the right-hand side you have the Florida shell rings that are generally much, much larger than those that are in South Carolina and Georgia. And remember, the majority of the rings are in South Carolina and Georgia. You can see the sea pines right there where the pointer is, and those are scale drawings. So that'll just give you an appreciation that it's pretty round, round than most, and it is pretty narrow. So it is a smaller shell ring. So field work has begun. We have a team of researchers from Binghamton University, from New York State. They actually began preliminary field work over the holidays, but they are in town now and in force, and they will be in the field daily, Monday through Friday, between now and July 1st. They will be using a variety of techniques to gather the data that they are interested in. And again, because the shell ring is rare to begin with, it's in especially pristine condition and is something that needs to be protected. An emphasis is being placed on non-destructive techniques. Although there will be some new digging, the majority of the work that they're doing is either reopening prior excavations or in shovel test pits, which are literally what they sound. A shovel hole is dug. That's done outside the ring in all directions for quite a ways to see if they can find any other associated features with the shell ring. And remote sensing. These are things like ground penetrating radar, which they'll actually be starting this week. Wanted to show you a few pictures. That one in the upper left, I showed that in the April. That was the previous excavation that was done in the 50s and 60s, and so they are able to re-dig out that previous excavation, and they can tell where the previous excavation ended and the new undisturbed material begins by looking at the soil profiles. And it's pretty night and day. It's really interesting. You can definitively tell this is where the previous researcher stopped. So upper left is the first previous excavation. Upper right is kind of hard to see, but it is after the weekend's rains. So it's currently filled with water, but it is slowly draining. Lower left, you can see now that there's a much larger field crew. There are a variety of volunteers, school groups, a great mix of interested folks. I took that picture yesterday morning, and in that picture there is a student from Bluffton High School, from Armstrong State, representative from the State Archaeology Society, as well as research team members from Binghamton University. The picture, it's kind of hard to see, but with the hand and the pottery shards, they have, even though they're going through previously dug material, found some interesting things, and these are preliminary results. But they expected to find pottery. You know, it was during going back to that pivotal time and place why these shell rings were important, is that the culture and the society was starting to change, and that the sea levels had stabilized. There were new technologies that these folks were inventing. Primarily it would have been pottery, and new tools, both shell tools and bone tools. They started settling down, and cultural identity started forming, tribal identities, which did not exist then. That when we think of Native Americans, we think of tribes. Those were just beginning to form. And these were actual artifacts found yesterday at the shell ring, and what you may not be able to see is that both of them are decorated. They have decorations that were done on them, and this was the first pottery in North America. It's really, really fascinating. And preliminary results, Dr. Sanger mentioned that on average 10% of the pottery shards, you don't get pots, you get shards, from previous work that he has done would expected to be decorated, and so far over 30% of the pottery shards that they've been able to find have some form of adornment on them. So it's pretty interesting. And then mapping, and so they began to map the site. There is still a need for some volunteers, specifically photographers. We have enough docents and enough field volunteers, but photographers are needed from today through the end of the work on July 1st. There is a little bit of training, site etiquette, etc., that Dr. Sanger will cover with the volunteer photographers. So with that in mind, there is a request that if you do want to participate, that you go at least 4 times. So at least 2 weeks during the next month, and at least 2 times during those 2 weeks. And that will minimize the time that he spends training each photographer. But if you are interested, Dr. Matt Sanger is the contact, and it's msanger@binghamton.edu will be the way to contact him. And if you have any difficulty contacting him, you can certainly contact me, and we'll discuss the gate issues a little bit later, so my email is on that if you'd like to contact me, and I'm in contact with him daily. Well, how can you participate? The site is open. It is open. The field crew will be on site Monday through Friday. They typically will show up 6:30, 7. I put 8 a.m. just to be sure, and then they knock off about 2 p.m., especially if it's really hot. So they show up early and they leave early, but the site is open. If you are interested, again, I have maps for you. You can park at Fish Island, and it is a very short walk from Fish Island to the shell ring. As mentioned earlier by Brett, Dr. Singer will be giving a presentation on some preliminary findings and other. He's very, very knowledgeable, very engaging. He presented to this community in January, I believe it was. Highly encourage you to come. It's very, very informative, and he's a very interesting person. And that's Monday, June 13th, 3:30 to 4:30 at this location. Also mentioned earlier, there will be 2 public days on Thursday, June 16th and Friday, July 1st. Both of those are 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. Depending on the turnout, you may be able to park at Fish Island, or if not, you can park nearby. And again, it'll be a short walk to the shell ring. And there will be tours, demonstrations, and kids' activities during that time. They are planning on having some of their equipment set up, some of the artifacts and other materials that they have found. They will have extra docents and guides on site. There will be some actual work that will be ongoing, and again, some kids' activities. So great opportunity to get out and see this wonderful cultural resource. And then lastly, you can make a financial contribution. The Forest Preserve Foundation is supporting Dr. Singer in his research and have had some additional expenses to do that. If you would consider making a contribution to the Forest Preserve Foundation, it is a 501c3. It's fully tax deductible, and you could make a note in the memo section of your check that it's for the Shell Ring Project, and we'll make sure to designate that specifically to the Shell Ring Project. So there's a variety of ways that you can participate. Okay, next I guess we're going to kind of change it over to what I'll call the public involvement section between what I'm going to talk about now and audience participation and what Dave will talk about a little bit later. A lot of information up here, which is why we presented and prepared that handout for you. And as Brett mentioned earlier, issues at the gate. And when we say gate, obviously that's the Greenwood Gate and the Ocean Gate. Although these initial examples focus on the Greenwood Gate, we are aware that both gates are an issue and they will be looked at. A lot of survey respondents replied that gate issues were either important or very important to them. And so we're trying to specifically look at what is the issue of concern. And so I have come up with a list from my perspective, and my perspective may be very different from your perspective. And so you have this handout. I'll be available after the meeting. Also, you have my contact information on here, but I'm requesting your perspective and your feedback on what your issues are, whether you're coming in or going out either of the gates. But while I have your attention, I wanted to go through these. And again, it's exactly what you have in your hand. And so you have an understanding of what it was I was trying to say if it's not clear, so you can give me some feedback. So these are inbound challenges. The rough order of these challenges is starting at Sea Pine Circle and then approaching the gate. So you're coming into Sea Pines. And some of the issues I've identified is just general congestion. There's just a lot of people and a lot going on, and that's kind of a hard one to pin down, but it can be an issue at times. Outbound vehicles turning left into Publix. So you're coming in, somebody is coming out, they are taking that left into Publix and they are crossing in front of you as you're coming in. Is that an issue for you? Vehicles that would be in front of you coming inbound, turning right into the Sea Pines Welcome Center, or vehicles that are coming out of the Sea Pines Welcome Center that are trying to head back to 278. Pedestrian and bicycle crossing, really there is no designated crossing along that whole stretch. They do cross at the gate and the officers will stop traffic, but other than that there is no designated pedestrian or bicycle crossing, and I frequently see people kind of playing Frogger trying to get across the road. Is that an issue for you? Difficulty turning left. So you've been to Harris Teeter, you're coming out of Office Park Road. I hear the murmurs. You're trying to make somebody make a check. So you're trying to make, and we're going to mention this again if you're headed outbound, but this is the inbound experience. You are trying to come into Sea Pines. Is that a challenge for you? Okay. Here's another one. Well, actually, another pedestrian bicyclist at the gate itself. That's currently where they are that's where the crossing is. Is that an issue for you? Because they do need to stop traffic to allow them to safely make their way across. Here's another one. Vehicles stopping in the left lane to purchase passes, get information, or to turn around. I would suspect that was a significant one for you. It certainly is for me based on my perspective. vehicle stopping in the left lane to receive a dog biscuit. It is something that we have, Toby and his crew has reduced during peak times because it has created flow issues, but they still to provide that service during off-peak times. Commercial vehicles, and this is very, very ephemeral, but commercial vehicles being asked that are in the left lane to get decal renewal information. That's typically the first couple weeks of January, but as those contractors with those commercial decals come in, they will frequently be stopped. They will be handed a piece of paper that gives them the information they need about the decal renewal. Vehicles stopping in the left lane while attempting to merge in the right lane. So they figured it out. They just figured it out at the last minute. And so they're stopped. You cannot get through the left lane. They are trying to get into the right lane. It's all stopped. How much of an issue is that for you? These last two are more for the club course folks. So you would like to use the right lane, but you don't use the right lane because it's backed up. Last bullet, so you get in the left lane. You pass through, but then you have got to make that pretty sporty turn to then turn on the club course drive. So is that an issue for you? So those are the inbound ones. Let's go on to the outbound ones. So roughly starting at Club Course Drive and working back towards Sea Pine Circle. That's the rough order of these issues. You're trying to get out of Club Course. How much of a challenge is that for you? So you're turning left from Club Course Drive, trying to get onto Greenwood Drive. Also, you could be exiting Club Course Drive and you're taking a right onto Greenwood Drive. How much of an issue is that for you? More pedestrian bicycle crossing issues. Another one is vehicles turning left from Office Park onto Greenwood Drive. So you've already gone to the grocery store. Somebody else is coming to the grocery store and you're headed outbound. How much of an issue is that for you as they try to safely navigate that crossing and come through the gate? Another big one I would assume is excessive backup to Sea Pine Circle. So it's just volume and that approach as you get to the gate, sometimes before the gate, and there's backup there. More pedestrian crossings along that corridor beyond the gate in the circle. Do you have any line of sight issues or other issues when you're trying to go into the public shopping center? That's a real common left turn that people will make, very short turn lane, and from my perspective that can be pretty challenging. Another really big one, a source of accidents over the years, is vehicles that are coming in that are taking that left to go into Wells Fargo or to Riley's. That's where the blinky light is and the crossing is. That can be really, really challenging at times. And then lastly is once you get to the circle, you have trouble getting into the circle because of the speed of vehicles that are already there. From my perspective, that can make it challenging to allow an effective and efficient flow through that circle. So, with all that said, my contact information is on this piece of paper. Everything that you have was put on the screen. I'll be available after the meeting and would love to hear your feedback. Thank you.
Hold on just a second. If you would, David, would you explain where we are on what we're going to do with this information real quick? Thanks.
Yes. So the reason why we're asking for this information is that there may be something that we have just completely missed, or you may have a different, again, perspective on. We will be meeting actually Friday with John Salazar with USCB, and he is with an institute there at USCB that does a lot of public surveying work. And so we are wanting to meet with him with the objective of developing a follow-up survey that we could then send to you all to then validate some of these issues that have been raised so that we can glean what we can from that information. So as we look forward to looking at potential gate configurations, reconfigurations, we can try to mitigate or address as many of those concerns as possible. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, David. And with that, I'd like to turn it over to Dave Borghese, who's going to talk about the Public Art Initiative, the conceptual view, and do a presentation. Dave?
Good morning, everyone. I'm going to do a presentation that was done at the last board meeting, so if you're at the last board meeting, you'll probably be bored. But for those of you who haven't, I hope you are interested in what we are doing. And this is really an attempt at maybe a provocative question, but it's an introduction of an idea, or at least a concept, for our community. And so the real question is well, you know, why? How did this come about? What's the genesis? And the genesis really is that in the fourth quarter of 2015, the public art exhibition was held at Honeyhorn. And this is really sponsored by the Community Foundation of Low Country through the Public Art Fund, and in which 20 pieces of sculpture art were exhibited for the community. And the Public Art Fund and its committee eventually selects one of those pieces, purchase the piece, and then provides it to the city for the city to display in one of its open spots. And I had the opportunity to actually go through and review all of the exhibits that were out there. And this particular piece of metal sculpture called Nature's Journey, done by a sculpture artist from Myrtle Beach, is one of a turtle coming up through seagrass. And I can tell you that this picture really does not do this piece justice, because the embodiment of movement, the size, and everything that had to do with this particular piece was just phenomenal. And my first thought was, wouldn't this be a wonderful piece to have at our Tara Beach Park? It would fit right in. And I was just wondering whether or not people would have the same concept or the same view as I do about public art and its place within Sea Pines. So that's kind of the genesis of where we started. And by the way, I'm going to show about 3 other pictures of sculpture. All these were for sale. Anybody can go out and buy them. So it just seemed to me that if we were to do something like this, we could piggyback onto what's done every other year. Public Art Fund does it in 2015. The next one will be at the end of 2017. Thinking that there's plenty of time to figure this out and plenty of time to actually explore with our community whether this is something we should endeavor to pursue. Now, obviously, we all, at least I believe, there are many benefits to having public art. And obviously, an artist put this together as to why the benefits. So, I mean, it could be a skewed view. But from my perspective, when I travel, whether it's, around here or to major cities or even internationally, I'm always intrigued by the amount of public sculpture art that is out there. And I always find it very interesting. So again, it's a bit of a passion that I have, just from a perspective that I'm not an artist, but I certainly enjoy looking and appreciating at what other people's creativity brings forth. So I brought the idea to the CSA board, who supported the idea of putting together an exploratory committee. And our committee members are there, and you can see that many of them are what I will call Sea Pines, some of our Sea Pines best artists around. And what we decided is that our objective really should be, does the Sea Pines community support this initiative? Because if it doesn't, then we're just pushing on a string, and we shouldn't do it. So we're looking for whether or not there is really support. The picture presented there, Salter, is actually by one of our own Hilton Head artists. And again, unfortunately, this picture was taken indoors. It doesn't really do justice to the piece when you see it out in a natural setting, as it was at Honeyhorn. So we're seeking to engage the community in forums such as this. We're going to pass out a very quick straw poll just to get some feedback. The whole idea of the straw poll is basically to say, what is the process we should go through to make sure that the community is involved, the community wants to have this as part of our Sea Pines landscape. And really, we're also thinking about how do we involve if we go forward with this project, how do we continue to involve the community in the selection criteria, the placing criteria, the funding criteria. This picture just happens to be called the Sunflower. I just particularly like this particular piece, primarily because it's colorful. But what's really interesting is the circles, the circumferences are really aluminum bicycle frames. And I just said, wow, wouldn't this be cool next to a leisure trail where people are biking? Next one. So when our committee got together, we started to talk about such things as the what, where, and how. What about site selection? How do we integrate the surroundings and nature? What's the physical safety, and what is the viewer perspective of where it would be placed? How do you select art? What would be the size, the type, the style? And finally, how do you fund it? We're not asking for a 1% sales tax. The whole idea of this is very similar to the forest preserve, which would be through donations. Again, donations to a tax-exempt entity so that any donation would be fully tax affected free for a contribution. Those are the basic thoughts that we were going through. But again, we were trying to get ahead of ourselves. So we developed a timeline, and part of it was, as you can see, a presentation to the board, presentation today. We are hosting a community town hall for an additional one more exposure before we decide whether or not we try to go to some affinity groups like the Garden Club or Men's Club, Women's Club, things of that nature. From the straw polls, we're going to decide whether or not it's worth going forward. Should we then have a community-wide survey? The whole idea is if the community really isn't enthused or really want to go forward, why spend the time, effort, and money to do that? But if the community does seem to want to support it, then we're going to go down another path that says, let's do it the right way. We've got plenty of time to do it. We can really develop a very good survey, get a community-wide survey, and go forward from there. So, we put together a pretty easy straw poll. Very simple. Do you support the idea? And number two, would you be willing to donate? If you support the idea but you're not willing to donate, that's a no vote. I'm a capitalist. You can vote with your head, you can vote with your heart, but you always vote with your pocketbook. And so that's what we're going to do. We're going to pass these out, and we're going to ask you to fill them out, and we'll collect them, and that's going to be part of our straw poll to figure out whether or not we have support for the idea. So thank you very much. Certainly appreciate your attention.
Thanks, Dave. And give Amanda and David a little chance to get those passed out so they can then man the microphones, and we'll get started with our Q&A. Just want to remind everybody, tomorrow afternoon, Circle to Circle Committee meeting here, public forum at 3 o'clock. You'll be able to see their exhibits for viewing, and then they will start their meeting promptly at 3:30. So I encourage everybody to participate, get out and let people know, let the town know, and the Circle Circle Committee know what you're thinking about in the Circle to Circle area. Okay. Did you figure it out, Victoria? Okay. Pardon me? Questions and answers.
That one's on.
See a show of hands? Yes, sir. Count one.
I didn't see that. All right. There you go.
David Harris. My name is David Harris. A question on Tower Beach access.
Yes.
You said that anyone who owns a timeshare, a weekend timeshare, can access the beach?
That's
Up
correct.
the parking lot.
They have rights to that facility. They are a residential property owner as defined in the covenants. They do have some We have elected to administer it by working with the management companies to give the management companies, Marriott and or Club Group,
Club and all those people.
access cards to use that. But we're not specifically issuing a ID card to each individual property owner, although they have a right to use.
So each of these facilities will have a card for every unit.
It's not for every unit. We give them a certain number because they don't have all of them coming to that at one time. They can request up to that number, but most of them, I think, are in the 30 card range.
So when people who rent cars, I'll change directions here.
Sure.
Those of us who live here, we rent a car,
Yes.
we use our cards, our little ID cards to get in.
Right.
Aren't we supposed to leave our photo ID card on the dash to show that we are an owner?
I didn't see that in any procedure
I've
that we had.
heard that
It's just
before.
you can go in there and you can use your card on that. It's not to put on the dash.
Okay. So when you review how often
That may
a
not be a
card's-
good idea. So,
Okay. When you review how often a card's been used to access Tower Beach,
okay.
will you contact people who are using it 30, 40 times a day?
Well, we're going to present the information to our board about what's going on down there if they have any questions, and we can modify procedures based on that or our policy based
Because
on
I was
that.
down there last week and someone had rented the pavilion and they were standing by the gate just flashing their card
Right.
for their friends to come in.
Right, and there are occasions where we do have folks that use the pavilion, and we do allow during certain times. We have restricted other times that you cannot use that for your own personal use, and those times I believe are related to the holidays. Again, these are policy and procedural things that are put in place today, and based on feedback, they may change in the future.
So I don't think that's what I heard months and months ago when
About
you talked about visitors. Non-residents should not be parking there, even if their friends are using or renting the pavilion.
that is not the case.
Well, okay. That's changed then.
Well, if you have, since I've been here, we've been operating so that if an owner has accompanied guests, they can bring in additional vehicles.
Okay, well,
They're accompanied by an owner.
without limit.
Pardon me, we have not placed a specific limit on that
Okay,
at this time.
that's okay. Well, thank you.
Just for your information.
Thank you.
Hold on, just wait for the microphone, please.
As you know, I went down there yesterday and took pictures. There were 14 cars that did not have Sea Pines property owners decals. One car that had nothing at all, not a parking, nothing. Okay, I assumed they used their property owner decal to get in. Of the passes that I saw, some indicated that they were for personal use by the person who had called them in. I assumed that was someone who flew in or was using a rental car or whatever. There were several passes, several groups of passes that had been issued by the same owner, did no indication of personal use, on multiple cars that were lined up together. There were 6 passes that said resort guest. There was one pass that was a timeshare pass. Now, I wonder, I would like to know, why, and I specifically asked the man at the gate, I said, why are you here? We don't need anybody here because we all have
Cards.
credentials. And he said, I'm here to open the gate when it doesn't work. And I said, well, who do you let in? And he said, only property owners. So I went and parked. He never asked for any credentials. He only looked at what was in the window. Okay? What I saw, when it says resort guest and nothing else, when it's not the BCH that says, I got this for my own use, when there are 3 and 4 cars going in under the auspices of one person, I'm curious as to how well trained he is to really identify who should be parking there. There were fewer cars that actually had owner stickers on them than there were cars with these blue passes. I personally have no dog in this fight. I walk to the beach, but this is my community. This was supposed to be our respite, our way to go to the beach and get away, have a place to park, have a picnic, do whatever, and not have to worry about all these other people parking. I think that you really need to look at your policy. And last year we tried to have a party for my son's lacrosse team down there, and we're told no, they could not park there.
Okay. Well, there may
All
be
right.
restriction times on that again,
It
and
was
that we
in
do
May.
have those
It was-
posted on
It was
one of
in
the-
May. It was not a holiday time.
Okay.
Linda Fahrenkopf, 35
you.
Wagon Road.
Thank you.
Here I am.
What are resort guest passes? Susan Emke,
Yes.
what are resort guest passes? Is that the Sea Pines Resort?
There are a variety of resort guest passes. You can have one for your rental. So if you're not in a management company that is associated with the resort specifically, and we have multiple management companies here, those folks get a weekly pass. Now, sometimes that is issued to an owner who is renting, and they don't have a pass here, and they may pick up a car here or drive a car here that they not necessarily have registered for a decal. So if they have a rental unit, they may get it through their own property management company.
I thought Tower Beach is for the use of the residents and their accompanied guests.
That's correct.
If you are
That's why we
renting, if
ask
you
for
are-
the card.
Right. If you are renting your property and you are not here, those renters are not the owner.
That's correct.
Okay, so these...
That's not what I said. Again, if an owner who rents their property through a property management company contacts your company and says, I'm coming down, all right, they have their resort or their CSA ID card.
Right.
Okay, with them. They may get a guest pass to access from their property management company because it's easy for them. They're going to use their own place. They get into Tower Beach with their card
Well, why did they need a resort guest pass is my...
to get
my
into
question.
Sea Pines. They need a pass to get into the
You
gate,
can get in with your... You can get in the gate with your...
but they have to stop.
I
mean,
really...
that's just-
I think you should be
I
doing
understand.
a little bit of policing of this parcel.
Right.
because-
That's what we do have someone down there to verify that the ID cards are present. And again, we'll look at what we can do on a limitation basis, especially during busy times, but the covenant says accompanied guests. The owner and their accompanied guests. There may be some provisions that allow us to restrict a quantity, but my recollection of it was related specifically to the number of bedrooms that you have in your home.
Ward Kirby, 17 Sand Fiddler, and I don't have a question on Tower Beach. Would it be possible, Brett, through Amanda or Hargray to update their cable installation schedules? I mean, they're extremely way behind on where they're supposed to be, so if they could update the schedule, I'd appreciate
We'll
it.
certainly request it, Ward. Absolutely. Thank you.
Joni Harris, just to play off the Tower Beach, I've been attending these meetings for years, and we've always been told if you have a card and you don't have a decal on the card because maybe you are renting a car to come down for a week, you need to put your property owner pass on the dash. And that was your way to police it. You either got in with a valid property owner decal or you had a property owner pass on the dash. And I think that would prevent these people from passing cards around and letting people in.
Right.
Also, the other thing is the gate. You probably already know this, and maybe you talked about it. I was not able to attend last month's meeting, but the gate is staying open long enough for 2 or 3 cars to gate in behind
Understand.
people.
Yeah. And we're working on how we can better do that. Obviously, we don't want to damage a vehicle going down there. And that's why during the summer, we also have an attendant down there during the peak times.
Hi, my name is George Paletta, and now that the season is coming about, I think that we need to pay a lot of attention to the Greenwood Drive from the Circle. There is a turnoff into Riley's that must be closed. Must be closed. There is no turnoff lane, and the cars stop to make that left. It's not where your yellow sign is. Mm-hmm. And the other thing is why are we so adamant about not having bright, colorful signs for these visitors to read for 4 months? Take them down after 4 months if we're so aesthetically concerned. Meanwhile, let's do something progressive and get it done. And you can use temporary barriers, and that is our roadway, from what I understand, to the circle.
It is our roadway.
It is our roadway.
However, the adjacent property owners do have specific rights for access. And we're working through that, actually, George, to try to determine what we can and cannot do on it. And we've got some different opinions on what we might be able to do, and I think we're going to be able to correct some of those things in the future.
Yeah, well, the future here is like God knows when. Most of us won't be alive. The fact of the matter is it's now that this needs to be done. You are not out there because you're working. But if you try to come down there, people are trying to make that left to go into Riley's or that area. And you got to pay attention to that. And I've been preaching about these signs for God knows how long. I volunteered to pay for a big sign, a construction sign, for 3 months.
Mm-hmm.
When are we going to do something? When is the future? When?
Well, we did change the signs, as you know, and we didn't get the results. I understand.
One sign, sir.
And I think there are different ones that we can do, and this is part of what we're trying to accomplish here, is to find out what your specific issues are, which is why we're asking this, and we'll take some actions based on the feedback that we're getting from the community.
Respectfully, this has been a concern to this community for years,
We
prior
understand.
to you even being here. Thank you.
Understand. Others?
Original question. It's Sue Emke again, 33 Governors Road. My issue is the beach resort selling food and alcohol. Hopefully you've been apprised of what I've been doing.
Yes.
One thing I did do is I called the Department of Revenue and Taxation Alcohol Beverage Licensing Section, who issues the liquor license. And liquor licenses, it is illegal to sell alcohol or serve alcohol, consume it on the beach, unless your liquor license specifically provides for it. I asked specifically if the Coast Restaurant at 87 North Sea Pines Drive license provides for that, and my contact there said no, and he suggested I contact SLED to initiate an investigation into this. I am not ready to do that because there is some land that the resort owns, and all they have to do is get a new liquor license. My concern is, where is the beach strand property? I think CSA needs to have a survey done of this and find out what is our land that is protected by the Beach Trust, and make sure the resort stays on their own land.
We agree. Others?
Hi, Karen Kinderman, 13 Fern Court. This is maybe not a very popular comment, but for instance, Hilton Head Prep rented the pavilion for their farewell party last week. So what would have been the procedure for all of those people to get in? Surely they're not Sea Pines residents. It seems to me if somebody is renting the pavilion, maybe 50 guests or 70, whatever it is, that they have the right to bring those people into the parking area.
Yeah, it's for a real property owner. And I don't know the specifics about Hilton Head Preparatory School doing that, but it is for residential property owners. So my estimation at this point, and I'd have to check on it, is that some sponsor that was a property owner probably rented that in the name of the event and brought folks in for that as their guests.
So that should be okay, right?
It is currently available for that, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, there's not a restriction on vehicles specifically. I have, and it's to property owners' use. And they're accompanied guests. Others? Okay, thank you. We will keep your comments and continue on the issues.
We are collecting